guys, welcome back to episode 8 of the Skinsider Podcast. Today, we do have a special guest, but before we start with that, we are going to cheers to our Skinsider margaritas, mezcal margaritas. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers. Our special guest is Charles Keller from SOFWAVE. We wanted to bring on someone who could give you all of the information on the hottest new machine out there right now, which is SOFWAVE. So tell us about your background and kind of how you got started with
buzzword. We have a buzzword this episode too.
Yeah, trying to avoid
Our buzzword is lift.
Awesome. Yeah, which I'm sure we'll be saying a lot of during this episode.
She just said it once, so everybody go.
Get it out of the way beforehand.
Just get it out of the way. You can call it the L word later in the episode. That's what I do. I cheat.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to you.
Yeah.
Your background.
No, of course.
How'd you get into that?
Well, first of all, I really appreciate you guys having me on.
No problem. Thanks for coming.
Serious honor to be here with the Skin Deep Gals and being one of the first guests on the Skinsider. I'm flattered beyond belief. But a little bit about my background. I am one of the sales reps for SOFWAVE here in the northern territory of Florida. But the way that I got my start with the company was about 2 years ago. So I moved here from Scottsdale, Arizona, and was actually the first territory manager hired with the company. So we are in very many ways still a startup ourselves. SOFWAVE has only been in the North American market since 2020. So we had what we call the worst launch in aesthetics history.
Yeah.
We actually entered the North American market in January of 2020. SOFWAVE is an Israeli company, so it was developed in 2015 in Tel Aviv, Israel. So it's been in the Middle East and European markets and global for almost a decade. But as far as the technology making its way into the United States, has only been around for a couple of years. But one of the things that drew me to SOFWAVE was just, I think, a new renaissance that's happening in the aesthetics kind of landscape. I know we're going to talk a lot about kind of the new trends that are happening, obviously, in the medical aesthetic space. But really what drew me to SOFWAVE particularly was I feel like there was a paradigm shift kind of happening in the kind of medical spa arena when it comes to non-invasive, non-surgical technology-based treatments for a number of different things when it comes to skin laxity, building muscle, and really adding volume for patients, which we all know very well, being in the medical spa space with injectables and filler and things of that nature. So I got my start with SOFWAVE in August of 2022. I moved here from Arizona on 10 days notice to open a new territory with the company because SOFWAVE is a new product in the ultrasound category, which is very unique for your guys' space, particularly. When we think of devices, we usually think of lasers, microneedling, a lot of other, kind of legacy technologies that, have really been kind of the standard for 15 plus years.
Right.
And SOFWAVE has really been that first differentiator. And I think kind of there's like I said, kind of a shift happening towards non-invasive, completely colorblind and sun-safe treatment modalities, which is really what SOFWAVE, I think, resembles. So that was what brought me to SOFWAVE.
Yeah. And because of it having the ultrasound technology, and like you said, that makes it sun safe and colorblind safe, but does that also give them a lot less downtime than a lot of the other procedures on the market would give them? Yeah,
absolutely. So over the last 30 years, since we've kind of seen these technologies come into the space, first with, IPL laser, so photo regeneration, right? Or phototherapy, as it's commonly called. Photofacial or photoderm was the first ever IPL laser, which was actually invented by our founder, Dr. Shimon Eckhouse. He was also the founder of Luminous, which is a very well-known laser company out there in the world today. So back in the early 1990s, when the first IPL laser was released, that was really the first time we saw non-MD dispensed cosmetic procedures really being done in a clinical setting. So with light-based, photo rejuvenation of the face, we started to see treatment of pigmented lesions, sun damage, browns, reds, varicose veins, things of that nature, which is again, over the last 30 years, really kind of, I think, continued to progress into more of like a non-surgical, non-invasive lifting. Here's the first one.
Wow, we were like ready that time. Normally we don't even hear it, and then
I think we were waiting for that one.
Yeah.
Maybe, a little bit.
Sometimes when Ashley gets a little like dry in the throat, she'll just start saying the words so she can take us in.
I think that
I've seen her do that before.
I think that's a good strategy too. Yeah. But with respect to the main conversation that I think most of your patients probably have when it comes to deciding if they want to elect for one of your kind of non-invasive, non-surgical packages is, what is my lifestyle trade-off going to be, right? How many days?
100%.
Yeah.
How many days am I going to have to stay out of the sun?
Prior or post?
Or in my house because of downtime.
Of course.
Yes,
am I going to go home with a laundry list of post-care protocols to follow and have to meticulously really follow a strict regimen to avoid any risk of an adverse event like post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation or ruining my face, right? By doing something like going out in the sun or something along those lines, where that has really been, I think, the biggest differentiator, is that ultrasound really allows you to have zero lifestyle trade-off, zero disruption to your daily schedule.
Right.
Ultrasound, as we know, it's something that's safe enough that we look at babies with it. Mm-hmm. Most of the imaging and diagnostics technologies and devices that you see in a hospital setting, most of them use ultrasound energy. Sound waves are really the most non-invasive energy that we know in medicine. Mm-hmm. Sound energy does not accumulate in the structures of your tissue. There's no residual heat retained in the tissue. Right. So for darker skin types particularly, if they have an ultrasound treatment done, they have zero contraindications for sun exposure. They have zero photosensitivity. There's no heat still retained in the tissue structures of their face, where if they were to go out into the direct sunlight, they would risk, an adverse event such as post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, melasma, whatever it might be, right?
Right.
So that's, I think, definitely one of the biggest benefits of ultrasound really making a kind of reemergence in aesthetics, is that, it's really changed the patient-provider relationship and dynamic when it comes to setting proper expectations for how patients will have to act after they leave the office, right?
Right. And what I like about it personally is how easy it then makes the consultation, mm-hmm. because everybody wants to build collagen. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to build the elastin fibers. And, we have so many different modalities mm-hmm. that we can give you to choose from. But it's really the only one that doesn't have any downtime.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, that is really
penetrate the skin.
That is really
actual machine.
That is really the biggest benefit that my practices will tell us. I think, certainly from a sales perspective, is that it is a much lower threshold for patients to commit to, because if you have modalities, many of which you guys have been utilizing mm-hmm. for years, right? Sure. Being as sophisticated of providers as you are in the space, and having the most cutting edge technology that's out there, whether it be for skin resurfacing or non-invasive lifting. I think we're drinking again.
Oh, I didn't even catch that one.
But particularly when it comes to ultrasound, one of the things that I think makes it such an attractive treatment option for any patient that walks into the clinic is that they're not going to be breaking skin. They're not going to feel hot or sensitive to sunlight or have any type of retained heat in their tissue after they leave the office. They won't have open, wounds or ablated skin where they're going to have, significant post-care over that next 4 to 6 days to really avoid any type of skin bleaching or discoloration that can result, with more ablative or invasive modalities.
Right. And for those that, listen and follow in, who are providers themselves, when we are looking to purchase any type of machine, we try and find a gap. Where's a gap in our modalities of like things that we can provide to our patients? And for us, that really was a big one, mm-hmm. where, we really
and with the demographic of age.
Absolutely. Yeah. We really didn't have anything that was going to give that L factor without the downtime or without using injectables of some sort. But that's so short-lived. And a lot of people are, not into injectables, and that's fine too. They want to do it the natural way.
Absolutely.
And this is the best option.
Yeah.
I think that's out there right now.
Yeah. No, and certainly with respect to kind of our world and when it comes to, the actual clinical efficacy of these technologies, I think our story is certainly unique because of the clinical validation that we've essentially achieved in our really short history as a company. When it comes to the actual outcomes and the results that we're able to enable our providers to deliver their patients, there's been many technologies that have obviously come out over the last 25 plus years, probably 400 plus lasers ballpark have come out over the last 2 decades in our space. And there's actually only been 3 devices in history that have been given a clinical indication of use or an FDA clearance for the non-surgical, non-invasive lifting of tissue in the face and neck.
Oh gosh, they're on it now. Well, and speaking of the clinical validation, it was just FDA approved for the appearance of cellulite too, correct?
Yeah. So just in the last, I would say, 12 months, we've continued to invest many thousands and over the course of our entire lifespan, millions of dollars on research studies with the FDA to expand the existing tool belt that our providers have when it comes to on-label marketable protocols that have clinically validated studies and measurable consistency across multiple patient demographics in objectionable, measurable clinical outcomes. Our most recent FDA clearances were for the short-term reduction in the appearance of cellulite. Right. Our long-term studies we are currently conducting, but that was a very unique FDA clearance because SOFWAVE, again, being ultrasound-based and totally non-invasive, it's actually one of the first cellulite protocols in the non-invasive space that is actually not targeting fat tissue. It's not damaging any of the fat tissue in the patient. It's not severing the septi, but it's also not resurfacing. So it's not resurfacing the top layer of skin or causing any epidermal damage. We are essentially addressing cellulite as a skin laxity issue by thickening up the skin and essentially reducing the appearance of those cellulite irregularities from the inside out is actually how we're addressing the appearance of cellulite. And yes, it was the first time that indication had been given to a device in our class of aesthetics, which was very unique in itself. And then over the last 3 months, really our most recent one, actually, since we got approved for cellulite, was actually the reduction of upper arm laxity. So just in February of this year, we were actually we were just recently cleared by the FDA with our most recent clinical indication for the ultrasound component of our technology, of which we now have 7 FDA clearances on a single handpiece, single modality, which is incredibly unique, like I had said. But with respect to the reduction of upper arm laxity, for a non-invasive, non-surgical class 2 device, that was the actually the first time that indication had ever been given as well. So again, just a kind of testament to really the commitment that SOFWAVE has to obviously not just having a very robust platform from a business standpoint and enabling you as providers to be successful. We've really put our money where our mouth is when it comes to the clinical component, which most technology companies tend to skip over, unfortunately, in our industry. We really have a firm commitment to allocating just as much of an emphasis and focus to the clinical validation of the technology and validating those claims through studies, as well as obviously marketing the technology to the masses so that it's something that has mind share with patients when they come in and is something that patients are seeking out and coming into your clinic for.
Right. I think we should, on our Skinsider Instagram, post your before and afters of your
the arms. Yeah. I need actually some more follow-ups from her as soon as she comes back, because
great results.
That was instantly after that treatment, actually. That wasn't even like 3 months out.
Yeah. As soon as she did it, you could see.
Yeah, you'll start to see improvement. I typically tell patients even as soon as anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, you'll start to probably see a noticeable
even her
improvement.
neck, because I did her neck, I think 2 weeks prior to doing her arms, my client's arms, and her neck, I could totally tell a difference in her jawline as well.
Yeah, no,
our
of
nurse
course.
practitioner at our office just the other day was like, look at these before and afters of myself. And it was her neck. And it was such a noticeable difference.
Yeah, it's a very unique time, like I'd said, to be in the aesthetic space for one, but also when it comes to the kind of ultrasound renaissance that we're kind of in the midst of, with SOFWAVE really gaining, as much market share as we have. We've been growing 400% year over year because of that exact thing you just alluded to, which is, I think, patients are getting noticeable clinical outcomes faster and with less lifestyle trade-off than they ever have previously, right? For SOFWAVE in particular, obviously being a single treatment modality, which is obviously unique as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, typically when it comes to lasers or any other type of aesthetic treatment in the med spa, usually, most of these technologies have what would be a 3 treatment protocol. You're typically seeing that patient 3 times spread 4 to 6 weeks apart. Mm-hmm. And then 12 weeks following that 3rd session is when they would actually have their full clinical results, photo, and come back for their follow-up consultation, which in a lot of cases for you guys as business owners, you guys know this, right? I mean, if you have to see a patient 3 times over 3 months, where there's mandatory downtime in between each one of those treatments, and then you're waiting an additional 3 months after that series of treatments are completed, a lot of times the better part of a calendar year has gone by the time a patient is actually seeing the final result of a package that they paid thousands of dollars for.
Right. And that's hard for them to even know how to schedule with all that downtime in between. Like, who has a year with nothing going on?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, even a stay-at-home mother or retired housewife, right, has a social schedule, has family commitments. I mean, we live in such a fast-paced society now with the proliferation of technology and how much the landscape is continuing to change at an accelerated pace. Patients don't even want to wait 2 weeks for their filler to set anymore, right?
Oh,
so,
or their Botox to set in after 7 days.
So for our technology in particular, I really am, excited about what is to come in terms of how we can continue to innovate and continue to utilize not just SOFWAVE, but multiple technologies to really get to better clinical outcomes for patients and ultimately continue to progress technologically, and being able to really change the landscape of what we can do when it comes to aesthetic medicine altogether. So I think SOFWAVE is at the forefront of that. We call ourselves the regenerative aesthetics company because we feel as though, based on kind of how our technology is positioned as a totally non-invasive, sun-safe, colorblind energy that is really geared towards adding volume or adding the regeneration of tissue rather than ablating it or taking it away. It's just a very unique, I think, kind of platform and foundational piece for most providers who have any type of practice that's treating patients for any type of skin laxity or loss of volume, whether it be in the face or the body.
Yeah, I love the machine. Honestly, I'm so happy that you wanted to bring it on board and got me in and at it as well. I mean, she came to me and she was like, all right, we're going to meet. We're going to talk about this machine with the rep. And after that, I mean, we were the first in Naples to have it.
Yeah, which is pretty incredible. I mean, especially as you guys continue to grow and expand and have built yourself into an institution and probably the best known medical spa here in Naples.
We try.
Which is a testament to your guys' willingness to kind of forge into the unknown. Because when you guys brought on the technology several years ago as one of the first in the state, actually, and the first in Naples.
We were the first in the state?
No, one of the first in the state.
And we were the first on the west.
On our coast.
Because I talked to a doctor, and that's why one of the reasons I did bring it on board. I talked, so our rep, Justin, he worked for a different company at the time. And then when he moved over to SOFWAVE, I knew he would have never made that jump if it wasn't
something he believed in.
Something he really, truly believed in. And that was really the reason I was like, okay, let's look into this because I know this guy. And I know that there's no way he would be signing on board with a company that it didn't work. And then he put me in touch with a doctor in Boca who was a plastic surgeon, and she and I chatted, and I kind of said to her, look, like, if you could describe this for me in like one sentence, give it to me. Like, you know, what are your thoughts behind this? And she was like, my thoughts are, I turn the machine up and I'm giving people, I have to say the L word, I'm giving people facelifts without cutting into the skin.
Let's get my throat was dry.
And we can cheers to that, because that's pretty impressive.
Cheers.
I mean, so that's when I was like, all right, Ashley, we gotta get on board with this, because I don't know, I still hadn't even really known anything about the machine yet. But I was like, I need to know more. And I knew that it would fill a gap of services.
And
Absolutely.
we just purchased our business, and then she comes to me and like, we need this machine. And I was like, well,
and she was like, we need to pay rent. And I was like, oh, that too, but we can pay rent with the machine money.
Yeah, no, of course. Well, and it's, again, I think it's been a worthwhile investment, and hopefully something that's transformed kind of the unit economics of your business from that standpoint. Like you'd said, when you can deliver those types of results for patients, especially doing so in a single patient hour where they're going to have zero disruption to their daily lifestyle, zero kind of thought about, you know, the possibility of, like I said, having some sort of adverse event or reaction, you know, to the treatment. That makes it, again, a very low hurdle for those patients to really cross, where, again, it's not just transformative for you two as business owners, but also for them in being able to get the results and kind of improvements that they're looking for.
Right, exactly.
Without the significant kind of sacrifices that have been typical of, you know, lasers and other treatments that we've seen over the last couple of decades, like I said. So yeah, no, it's been a very exciting time. I mean, we have these moments every, you know, several years in our industry. You know, I can think back to, you know, obviously, you know, certain modalities becoming incredibly popular, such as, you know, microneedling with radio frequency, you know, in the kind of mid-aughts. Yeah, kind of the mid-aughts, really from 2009 onward. You know, microneedling with radio frequency was a paradigm shifting moment, right? When it came to, you know, being able to treat a more vast patient population with respect to skin laxity. And then also, you know, things like cool sculpting in, you know, 2012 and 2014 really kind of changed the paradigm of how we think of, you know, the targeting of fat in a non-invasive, non-surgical kind of method. And even something like Botox, right, in the late 1990s or early 2000s, when botulinum toxin was starting to be used in aesthetic applications for, you know, wrinkle relaxers in the face and neck for an aesthetic application. I mean, those were all paradigm shifting moments that I think we are kind of in the midst of again in 2024 with ultrasound really being kind of that next platform shift in aesthetics, where now from having, you know, 3 to 5 treatments, you know, with respect to laser or other modalities needed to really get to a full clinical outcome, now we are seeing patients in a single hour get those types of results. And like I said, with really no lifestyle trade-off or any disruption to their everyday activity, which I think speaks for itself. And
speaking of those trends, I mean, the biggest trend we're seeing right now in this industry is Ozempic, semaglutide, trizepatide,
weight loss programs.
Yeah, all of these different weight loss programs. So how has SOFWAVE kind of shifted to work in tandem with that? No,
completely. I mean, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because it was one that I missed. I mean, yeah, I think really more recently, probably the most, I think, ground-shaking development has been the medical weight loss craze that we've seen over the last couple of years with, the on, you know, label drugs of like Ozempic, Wegovy, you know, semaglutide, tirzepatide, as they're, you know, pharmacologically called. But medical weight loss has completely changed the paradigm with respect to aesthetics.
Absolutely.
You know, when it comes to patients who are having these incredible weight loss journeys and losing, you know, 80 to 100 pounds over the span of several months, one of the first things that they're noticing through those improvements is that they have obviously an incredible loss of body mass or volume of you know, their fat tissue, or
so quickly.
Yes, exactly. And one of the things that's, you know, really unique about that is that it's also up to 40% of that weight in some patient demographics and segments is muscle wastage and connective tissue. So I think with the recent kind of medical weight loss renaissance that we've seen in tandem with SOFWAVE, one of the things that SOFWAVE is really, I think, emerging as a leading technology due to is because of that conversation of skin laxity and loss of volume for these patients who are obviously on, the medical weight loss drugs that we're seeing that are so popular today. One of the first things that you typically, have after going on one of those incredible weight loss journeys is you're going to have areas of your body where skin feels loose, right? Or, that feel weaker, right? Based on just the amount of fat and muscle volume that you're losing. So it's been an incredible game changer for those patients and being able to add volume to their skin in a way that is natural and non-invasive. So one of the things that's incredible about SOFWAVE with respect to skin laxity is that, on average, it's going to deliver about a centimeter of improvement to your jowling or jawline definition. So if the first thing you start to recognize with Ozempic is very common as Ozempic face, right? One of the first things that patients will start to come in asking for is, kind of their crepiness of the neck tissue.
Say it, a lift.
Yeah, so
she got thirsty. This is what she does. Halfway through the episode, she'll just start whispering the word because she gets thirsty.
Yeah, no.
I love her.
We definitely got to stay well hydrated here, but with respect to having a non-invasive option for treating the crepiness of skin or skin laxity is really important, and having a technology that has FDA cleared indications. And clinical validation behind it, and is going to really treat the tissue and remodel the tissue at a molecular level that other technologies are incapable of doing, has been a game changer for our practices who do those treatments.
So spill the SOFWAVE tea. Is there going to be new hand pieces, new attachments, modality? Is there anything new up and coming?
So there are some exciting developments at SOFWAVE. We recently just released... We're
getting the details.
Yeah. So we recently just released a new full body electromuscle stimulation modality, or EMS. It's the first ever full body EMS device in medical devices. So many of us are probably familiar with a lot of the other muscle building and muscle firming and muscle toning devices that are out there, right? There have been several over the course of the last several years that have become very popular, and a number of different companies are in kind of the EMS space as we know it. But with respect to this particular thing that we've been talking about, particularly with the medical weight loss craze that has really kind of taken our industry by storm the last year, we released our new technology, SOFWAVE Plus Pure Impact, a year early due to really just the high demand for adding back not just volume of the skin for treating skin laxity, but also volumizing the muscle tissue, right? So again, being a regenerative aesthetics company, SOFWAVE is really focused on how can we regenerate new healthy tissue in a totally non-invasive, non-surgical way, and obviously based on all of the developments that we've had on the ultrasound side of the technology. We've now released our second product, which is a Bluetooth attachment. It's still on the same platform. Like you'd said, it's really just the equivalent of, adding an additional handpiece to a device, which is very common in the laser space with different diodes and wavelengths and all of the different things that you see out there. But Pure Impact is an addition to the existing SOFWAVE platform where it's Bluetooth enabled, and it's enabled through the IoT connection that you have locally at your spa. So it's fully enabled by Bluetooth and Wi-Fi as a hands-free wireless EMS device that is not just targeting a singular muscle group, which I think is the biggest differentiator. Like I'd said before, there's been a number of technologies that treat muscle when it comes to the medical spa space, all of them really only targeting a singular muscle group, right? So if you think of anatomical accuracy and how we train muscle when it comes to our everyday life, whether it's going to the gym or exercising, you would never just train a singular muscle group, right, in the course of any workout. even if you were targeting a number of certain specific muscle groups over the course of several weeks or several months, you would not only train a singular group of muscles due to the risk of overtraining. One of the risks of overtraining can be, loss of range of motion or mobility, training of the muscle tearing. Overtraining of the muscles is something that we see as very prevalent with a number of other technologies that are out there, just based on the limitations of only being able to treat a singular muscle group at once. SOFWAVE is the first ever plyometric EMS device. So what that means is that SOFWAVE is treating up to 8 muscle groups in concert across the abdomen, the thighs, the quads, the glutes, and the buttocks. So depending on the configuration and modality that you're doing on the pure impact treatment, whether you're treating the abdomen and quads or the glutes and hamstrings simultaneously, you are treating up to 8 muscle groups at once, where those electrodes are signaling or stimulating the muscles in concert to mimic real plyometric exercise. So over a 30-minute treatment, it's really like doing, any of your core exercises that you would do in a standard HIIT class, right? Whether it be toe touches or box jumps or Russian twists or jump squats. It's mimicking real world plyometric exercise to give you an anatomically accurate hypertrophy response, which is not just going to build a singular muscle group and leave all of the other muscle groups around it to atrophy, but it's going to firm and tone the muscle in an anatomically accurate way that's not going to risk, reduction of mobility and overtraining of certain muscle groups. So that's been our newest addition to the
SOFWAVE family.
The SOFWAVE family of products. It's our 8th FDA clearance that we've been given for muscle firming and toning now, getting into the electro muscle stimulation world, not just treating skin laxity. So the platform is continuing to expand as the years go on, and we're continuing to invest those R&D dollars to, like I said, expand the existing protocol that is already on the platform with new on-label protocols that you guys have at your disposal as providers to treat a vaster patient population and obviously reach profitability faster. So when I started with the company in August of 22, we only had 4 FDA clearances on the original SOFWAVE console. We had a clearance for lifting of the brow, lifting of the lax submental tissue, which is like our gobble chin area here, and then lifting of the neck tissue. So there's 3.
Right. Hold on, everyone.
We got ourselves.
So yes, when I started with the company, we only had 4 clinical FDA indications: the brow, the neck, the submental tissue. So all of those indications for non-invasive lifting of the skin, and then also smoothing out of fine lines and wrinkles. So it was strictly a face and neck device just 18 months ago.
So for those listening, for the pure impact, who would be the ideal?
Yeah, so I would say the ideal candidate for a pure impact training or the electromuscle stimulation modality that's brand new to the space would be one of those patients who is perhaps a medical weight loss patient, or even a patient who is looking to add any type of muscle volume, for one, or is experiencing some form of muscle atrophy or muscle wastage, right? So obviously very prevalent amongst the patients who are on medical weight loss drugs with respect to retaining their muscle mass. One of the best ways to do that is through using SOFWAVE plus Pure Impact, because it is a totally hands-free technology and something that they can do, in a single 30-minute session. It's a 4 treatment protocol, so you'll see them, really once a week for a month to complete a full series of those treatments. But I would say the ideal candidate would be those patients who are on some form of medical weight loss, or maybe an elderly patient who is maybe not mobile enough to really commit to a full kind of exercise lifestyle, but is looking to retain, their strength and muscle volume. Those would probably be the 2 candidates that I would say would be best suited for Pure Impact.
And so for providers, it's a good idea to maybe even bundle with the weight loss programs.
Oh, absolutely.
Something you can
or even when someone's getting a facial.
Yeah. Yeah,
getting
absolutely.
their lashes done.
Free.
Yeah. I mean, certainly there's a ton of cross-treatment capability just having the electrodes on, your abdomen and quads or, glutes and hamstrings while you're getting another service done. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But, like you'd said, also adding it as kind of a supplemental kind of treatment to go along with those medical weight loss medication subscriptions that you are probably seeing those patients either on a weekly or monthly basis, or maybe even sending them home with the medication, whatever it may be. It really does sync up perfectly with kind of those types of treatment schedules where for an additional charge, they can essentially not just have an incredible an incredible result when it comes to getting the weight off, right? And losing the weight that they've been trying to for years, but also immediately addressing not just the muscle volume that they've probably lost as a result of the medication, but also treating the skin laxity. So I've seen SOFWAVE stacked, SOFWAVE Plus Pure Impact stacked with medical weight loss in a number of different ways, both on the ultrasound side and the muscle stimulation side. Because again, when it comes to the regenerative type of outcome that we're trying to deliver with SOFWAVE, we are trying to volumize the skin and volumize the muscle, which is something that every medical weight loss patient, really every patient who's aging in general, is looking for. Most of your patients who are coming into the clinic are probably looking to add volume, or
they definitely don't want to lose it. Yeah,
exactly. If they are looking to lose volume, it's because they're looking to lose metabolic weight, right?
Correct. Yes.
So. Yeah, I think it's perfectly kind of designed for those types of patients, which I think is most of us, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's interesting too, though, that it's blowing up in LA right now.
Yes, it's become a very popular treatment.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at our growth trajectory over the last several years, I had alluded to the fact before that we had what was probably the worst launch in aesthetics history. We launched in the United States in January of 2020, 60 days before the pandemic happened. So it was a very slow rollout, I would say, with respect to our, kind of go-to-market strategy here in North America and the United States in particular. But what it's really done, I think, has given a lot of the top key luminaries in the medical spa space and really the medical aesthetic space in general, whether it be cosmetic dermatology, plastic surgery, or, laser science, right? A lot of the kind of forefront minds in aesthetics have started to really look at SOFWAVE as a game changer and differentiating technology for a lot of the reasons what I previously mentioned. We have just never really seen ultrasound be harnessed in an aesthetic application that was incredibly delegable to any provider on staff in an office, but also being able to treat a patient in a single patient hour and deliver objectionable, measurable results consistently. It's something that is starting to take a lot of major markets by storm, LA being one of them, with how prevalent it is. We have a number of very high-profile key luminaries out there, such as Dr. Tess Mauricio. She's Stanford faculty, one of the most well-respected cosmetic dermatologists in the entire country, and has a number of locations in Southern California. Ava Shamban, Dr. Ava Shamban, or Ava MD as she's known, or her medical spa chain is known in Los Angeles, Beverly Hills. She was one of the first adopters of the technology. Dr. Doris Day, who was voted the number one dermatologist by Newsweek in New York City last year. She's one of the kind of forefront, users of the technology in New York, and is really a titan of cosmetic dermatology. I mean, when I speak with a lot of dermatologists and young dermatologists, particularly young female dermatologists, when I'm at conferences or things of that nature, names like, Dr. Doris Day, Dr. Ava Shamban, these are names that a lot of these, young providers went into their specialty because of their admiration for a lot of these people. So, to be able to reference those providers that I mentioned, and Dr. Jean Carruthers is another one who is a huge proponent of SOFWAVE. Dr. Jean Carruthers of Carruthers Cosmetic, she's one of the longest practicing surgeons in Vancouver, and she is the fairy godmother of Botox. Dr. Carruthers was one of the clinicians who conducted the first clinical studies and FDA trials for botulinum toxin and using it as a wrinkle relaxer. So she obviously, has a keen eye for these paradigm shifting treatment modalities, and certainly is motivated by just that, right? Bringing new novel technologies and treatment modalities to market that are going to change the lives of patients. Mm-hmm. So to have those types of names in our camp makes it really, fulfilling for us and very, natural for us as sales reps to be able to have honest and unfiltered conversations, because it's not something that we tend to shy away from when we go down a kind of clinical path of discussion. Because when it comes to the clinical validation of the technology, there hasn't really been a laser company or an aesthetics company that's really committed the investment and time into validating all of the claims of the technology and giving our providers the on-label marketable protocols that I had mentioned to then run a successful practice. Right. And sell packages effectively, which is what we all obviously are in the business of doing.
Yeah, I like SOFWAVE's approach. I think, with all of that, the studies and development.
It certainly matters. I think studies definitely matter as much as I feel there's been kind of this, shift in mentality away from, kind of holding, certain data in I guess any kind of regard. I mean, studies can be obviously kind of a tricky and trivial conversation depending on the technology that you're looking at, because, a lot of the claims that are substantiated across different technologies, if you actually look at the literature of a lot of these studies, I mean, it's very common for aesthetic studies, for example, for the patient population or the patient sampling of a study to be less than 10 patients, right? Right. If you look at SOFWAVE studies for, our brow study or our neck study or our submental study, all of those studies were between 60 and 80 patients, multi-centered studies, ran at multiple locations with patients of every demographic, right? If you look at, some aesthetic studies with some of the most popular procedures and devices in our industry, I won't name them by name, but some of them, were conducted or have claims based off of a study that had 3 patients, right? Yeah. So there has been kind of this almost, migration away from holding studies in high regard in a lot of cases, which I've found puzzling as someone who's new to the industry, because for the most discerning minds in medicine to be able to reference actual data and clinical outcomes, I think is incredibly important when you're selling, packages that cost thousands of dollars to patients, but then also when you're investing in a device that costs, north of 6 figures, right? To be able to reference those types of statistics is incredibly important for me as an employee of the company and as a provider facing sales rep. That is why I, feel very, passionate about what I do and feel very convicted about what I do, is because of the commitment and investment that our company has made to substantiating those claims, as I had said. I mean, there's really, in terms of companies with roughly $40 million in revenue, which is where we are as a company, if we think of the, most well-recognized names in kind of the medical spa device arena, most of these companies are north of $300 million in annual revenue. SOFWAVE is at about $40 million in revenue. Last year, I think we did about $44 million in revenue in 2023. And we invested 11 million of that in research and development, or these FDA controlled studies, to continue expanding the FDA clearances of the technology and substantiating the claims-based protocols that we then turn around and give to our providers, to, give them more tools in their tool belt to make this device a profitable part of their practice, which I just don't see any other company doing.
There is, I will say, I've been in this industry for a long time, and I will say one thing that stands out with SOFWAVE is the support that's behind you. Mm-hmm. It is day or night, 24/7, and the resources that's provided. Yeah. I'm always very impressed. There's always webinars on new clinical indications. There's always more information coming out. Here's how you do a proper consultation. here's, the answer to such and such a question. And I love that, because as a provider, to know you're backed 100% is a game changer.
Yeah, no, we really view, our customers at SOFWAVE as partners, right? Any practice that invests in our technology and brings it in as an offered service, on their, cash pay side, if they're, a dermatologist or in some other medical specialty, or if they're, a retail medical spa, one of the things that's incredibly important to us is, like I said, giving all of our practices the necessary tools to run a sound, profitable, and, fulfilling practice where patients are happy, and providers are happy, and not just what they're charging, but also the outcomes that they're delivering for their patients. And certainly on the back end with respect to continuing education. Like I said, I think the clinical emphasis goes without saying that, every month we're holding, webinars with, some of the key kind of luminaries in our field and some of the highest performing SOFWAVE providers in the country, sharing of best practices and how they're utilizing the technology differently across specialties, and different business types, because, no two clinics are the same, right? If you're an HRT clinic in Jacksonville versus, a boutique medical spa in Naples, even though you're in the same industry, right? The nuances of your kind of challenges as a business owner, and ultimately how you treat your patients and your specific patients at your clinic is different.
Right.
So, I think continuing to provide that value and knowledge and continued resources is really the key to what makes the whole wheel continue spinning, is, the support that we give after the fact, because there's a lot of technologies out there, and you guys have probably had these experiences where there's a long going, joke in our industry amongst laser reps, where it's, what's the easiest way to get rid of us? The easiest way to get rid of a laser rep,
buy a machine, you never see them again.
The easiest way to typically get rid of a laser rep is to buy a laser, right? And then poof, you can't get them on the phone. They don't return text messages or calls. God forbid you have a device or a machine go down, and there's a part that needs to be replaced or a repair that has to be done. It becomes a kind of nightmare scenario for a lot of practices, and most practices I talk to have been doing this long enough, have at least one kind of PTSD story when it comes to purchasing a laser or other energy-based device. And it's because of kind of that dynamic that I know we've been talking about kind of this whole episode, which is that there's a lot of complexity to our space, being in the medical field, obviously by nature, but also being kind of in a almost kind of cavalier cowboy industry. Being in the cash pay medical space where, we're very much closer to probably like a hair salon or spa in the way that our providers purchase our services, rather than going to a doctor's office. So there is kind of this, business and medical component that makes it very difficult to navigate what is what, whether it be the conversation of clinical efficacy or profitability, or restrictions on patient types or the ability to do these treatments. There's a lot that can get lost in translation. So, I feel very confident about how we're positioned amongst all of the other, device companies that are out there, and the outcomes that we're able to deliver to patients, but also for our providers as well.
Yeah, and the support. I mean, I'm pretty sure Justin drove through the night for us once.
Oh yeah, to fix our machine when we first got it.
He literally I'm not even kidding you, drove.
And he just had a newborn baby.
Yes, he had a newborn baby.
Yeah.
And he was someplace else, and I called him for something, not even knowing, and he was like, I'll be there in the morning. And he just somehow showed up.
Yeah.
And we were like, what are you doing here?
Yeah. No, I mean, again, we're very fortunate in kind of our model and approach.
Then we never bothered him again after that.
Yeah.
I think we felt so bad that we were like, okay, we will just never. And then one time I called customer service for something, and they were like, oh yeah, no problem. Well, your rep can help you with that. And I was like, I kind of owe my rep one. I'm not going to call him. What can you help me with?
Yeah, no.
I felt so bad.
No, you don't ever have to feel bashful about calling Justin or myself for any type of support.
No, you guys are really great. Yeah. I mean, I'm very happy with our investment with SOFWAVE. Yeah. I also believe in the technology and the software, especially coming from Israel. They're very smart and intelligent over there.
Most whole side of the world is on it when it comes down to
aesthetics.
They get it so much faster than the US does. They're just
most of these companies all come from the same. I mean, it's a very incestuous industry, both on kind of like the rep side and then also on the engineering side as well.
Right.
A lot of these technologies in the laser and kind of energy-based devices space all come out of, typically Israel or Korea.
Right.
Primarily.
Well, I was going to say Asia.
Yeah.
Asia with the skincare and the devices.
I'm surprised nothing really comes from like Europe.
Well, there's also Italian companies. I mean, there's a lot of Italian, a lot of laser companies that do come out of Europe as well. But I mean, when you think of kind of, again, the household name, technologies devices that we all know, whether it be on the laser or RF microneedling or ultrasound side, many of them come from Israel because of the emphasis on technology that exists there and kind of the rich startup ecosystem that they have. Our founder has been at the forefront of that for the better part of 35 plus years. I mean, like I said, really back in the early 1990s when he started the company, which is now Luminous. Like I said, I mean, that's really what started what we now know as the med spa space. And then over the last 30 years, it's really been 30 years of R&D that's gone into developing SOFWAVE, which is why I like to tell the company story when I do meet with practices, because they're usually able to connect the dots. They're usually able to connect the dots and remember kind of the genesis story of when all of these kind of products rolled out over the years. And then, when they think of going from, IPL laser to CO2, and fractional CO2 non-ablative laser to then, radio frequency based body contouring and volumizing, and then, now RF microneedling and CO2 is still kind of the gold standard now. They've seen the genesis story of all of these technologies and all of the things that they've been able to do for patients. And so it really ties it all together when I tell them the SOFWAVE story, because really SOFWAVE has been 30 plus years in the making. It's not something that really, was first developed in 2015 or even 2020. It's something that's really been in development for decades. It's just taken time for the technology and the science to catch up with what patients are now demanding and expecting, and how competitive of a landscape and market that we now exist in. So, it's an exciting time for us, obviously being at the forefront of that and really being the only fractional ultrasound and muscle stimulation platform in aesthetics. And so, it's exciting. It's going to be even more exciting to see, all of the new technologies and modalities that continue to proliferate. I think we're only at the starting blocks of what our industry really holds. So it'll obviously be an exciting career for myself, but also for you guys as you guys continue to.
And you can also treat acne scars as well.
Yeah. So one of the clinical indications that we were cleared for last year was the reduction in the appearance of acne scars. Okay. So that was, again, a very novel and unique clinical indication of use that we were granted from the FDA, because it is, again, an ultrasound technology that causes zero epidermal injury, where most of, the treatments that you see for acne scarring, whether it be, injectables for filling in those, deeper dimpled scars, through injectable, product, or through very aggressive resurfacing using a laser or skin pen or other energy-based device. It's the first device that's been able to treat acne scars without breaking the skin whatsoever, which is, again, a completely novel breakthrough in our kind of space, and something that continues to differentiate our ability to treat not just, the typical medical spa patient, kind of that 40 to 65 age range, female patient. We're now giving our providers tool belts to treat, younger patient demographics and different patient demographics, and open up new profit pockets within their practice, which again is kind of a testament to that partnership commitment that I think we have that many other companies do not. Usually when companies come out with a new platform or new device, the next time that you see them, they're typically going to be talking about a new product that's coming or another device that's coming. Very rarely do they continue to invest those millions of dollars in studies and continued trials on the device that they've already sold you, right? Where, the investment that you've made is continuing to yield dividends, which you, to more than almost any other practice in Florida, have been the beneficiaries of. I mean, like I had mentioned before, when I started in August of 2022, which was after you guys purchased the technology. You guys have been partners of SOFWAVE even longer than me, which is pretty amazing. But you guys have been the beneficiaries of having those new conversations to talk about with your existing SOFWAVE patients, but also being able to market it to a more diverse, kind of patient pool in your given market. So I think that is one thing that definitely on the support side that a lot of our practices love, is that every year as the technology gets older, it's becoming more relevant with respect to its ability to treat patients, not more obsolete, which is very, very important.
That's good.
So if people want to get in touch with you, they have questions about SOFWAVE, what is the best way to do that? Email, Instagram?
Yeah. You can absolutely. I think probably the best way to really kind of get information on SOFWAVE or to reach out to me for those listening is my Instagram, which is just SOFWAVE Florida. So SOFWAVE Florida on Instagram. And then if you are old school and want to shoot me an email, I'm on email as well. It's just charles.keller at softwave.com. Keller like Helen Keller. So that's how it sounds. So I'm a SOFWAVE super fan. I work for the company, but I am always happy to give, whether it's patients or providers, information on the treatment and the technology. I'm always an open book. So
that's great. Mm-hmm. Well, cheers to that, everybody.
Cheers.
Absolutely.
And I do have a Reddit question, but before I get into that,
this is like my favorite part of the segment here. Now
I didn't even drink.
Oh God.
I kind of sell SOFWAVE in consultations where I tell people they're like questioning getting a facelift or not, that this is basically a facelift machine in like, but not getting.
But I know. I'm going to keep saying I think that was actually like 2.
So I will say it's basically like getting a facelift without going under the knife. All right. So this is a question. It says, the conclusion is nothing works for tightening the skin. I'm 32 years old and I've started to notice loss of definition in my jaw and a faint marionette line on the left side. Sorry, I'm reading this on my phone, of the face. It's driving me crazy. I don't mind other small signs of aging, but this in particular makes it impossible for me to look at myself in the mirror. I'm considering trying laser treatments, but I've heard they can cause facial fat loss and age you. Thread lifts don't seem to work, and fillers can migrate and be ineffective. Is there anything I can do before considering actual surgery? I'm okay with aging gracefully, but I'm not prepared to age this much just yet. I already use sunscreen, vitamin C, and retinol at night. Thank you for any suggestions you may have. So basically, yes, you can just answer off of that.
He's going to go SOFWAVE.
And your competitor was recommended right underneath you.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, there's a lot of
down.
Yeah, no, I mean, and there is a lot of things when it comes to, crepiness of the skin or loose skin that a lot of people will point to address it. But I think when we think of treating skin laxity, particularly, a lot of times loose skin is because, again, kind of what we had talked about before, a loss of volume, right, in the face and neck. And they actually even reference there in that question that, some other devices will actually even contribute to that fat loss and,
penetrating too deep.
Right. And contributing.
We won't say it, but we know it.
Yeah. And it actually makes the laxity of the skin even worse.
And it damages your tissue.
Yeah. Which is what you don't want to do. You don't want to have to be doing fat transfers and over injecting filler and looking unnatural. So one of the best ways to lift our skin, is
he just likes how it tastes.
Is with SOFWAVE. Mm-hmm. So the best way to do that to our skin is with SOFWAVE, because SOFWAVE is really a prejuvenation tool for adding volume, really regenerating.
Great for everybody.
Yeah, it's really a dermal regeneration tool is how we position it, because we are essentially just thickening up the dermal layer of tissue, which is the layer of skin below your top layer. So you obviously have your epidermis, which is your top layer of your skin where all of your pigment and other epidermal structures are, and then your dermis, which is where most of your collagen and elastin and hyaluronic acid is manufactured is in the dermal layer of your tissue, essentially 0.5 millimeters to 2 millimeters down below the top layer of skin. So that is where SOFWAVE is focused. So we are regenerating the dermal volume completely non-invasively, and able to not just add jawline definition and more volume to the facial profile, but also lift the skin through that. Word. Yeah.
Okay, so one final question for you before we close out. So then, is it advantageous to capitalize on that new collagen and elastin with doing a second treatment?
Yeah,
after you do the first.
Yeah, definitely. I would say, depending on the patient and using your medical judgment, there's certainly patients who will see a great benefit in a second treatment, particularly if they're, a candidate for a surgical procedure when it comes to, a face or neck lift.
Right. Like with more mature skin.
Exactly. More mature skin, particularly. If you have, say a patient in their, 70s who has, severe laxity,
right.
particularly in the neck, I would say doing a second treatment at roughly the 3 to 6 month mark is definitely just going to extend and enhance that result,
right.
and what a lot of our patients will elect for, because again, it's non-invasive. There's not really any true lifestyle trade-off or significant downtime to the procedure. So patients are happy to come back for a second treatment at that 3 or 6 month follow-up. So there certainly are patients who would benefit from a second treatment, but typically 1 treatment per year is all that's needed.
Yeah. Well, great. Thank you for being here. We're so
thank you, Charles. We appreciate it.
Information.
I hope we get so many calls for SOFWAVE right now.
You are welcome to come back anytime.
Oh, I'm so flattered to be here. Yeah, thank you guys so much.
Is this your first podcast appearance?
First podcast since I've been an aesthetics rep. Yeah, I'd been on a few finance podcasts in my past life. I was in the finance space for a number of years, both in mortgage lending, and then also I worked at Merrill Lynch, which I had mentioned to you. I know your father is a wealth manager. So I was a finance bro in my first life, and now I'm kind of making my foray into the medical aesthetics and med spa world. But first one in years, and first one since I've been in this discipline. So I'm
have you back.
And what is your favorite skincare product?
Very quick. My favorite skincare product is Eminence Stone Crop Body Oil. I love the smell of
oil.
Eminence. Yeah, it's a body oil. So it's not a moisturizer.
I have follow-up questions. That might not be the last question.
It's not a moisturizer. It's a body oil. So I mean, it does moisturize and is used, I guess, the same way that I would use lotion, but it's an organic, natural skincare product. I don't know if you guys carry Eminence.
No, we don't.
I use an oil. I use Moroccan oil.
Yeah.
It's like a spray.
Yeah.
And it's an oil.
It's very earthy. I don't know. I just, the fragrance of the Stone Crop body oil from Eminence is my favorite. That's really like my only daily use. I'm a guy, so I don't have any nightly skincare routine.
Yet.
I was telling
you have SOFWAVE.
Yeah. SOFWAVE and body oil. SOFWAVE and baby oil.
Well, guys, for episode 8, I just wanted to wrap it up here and then let you know that this summer we're probably going to run some specials on SOFWAVE because we do not want you to lose out on catching the wave.
SOFWAVE summer.
Yeah, SOFWAVE summer, catching the wave.
Catch the wave.
We've got all these marketing ideas, and because it is sun safe, it's a perfect one.
Yeah,
correct.
It's really
no downtime.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, many of you know who have been coming to Skin Deep for years, or if you've been going and getting aesthetic treatments done. I mean, that the summer months, a lot of times are a non-conversation when it comes to lasers and other energy-based devices. For your aesthetics treatments, a lot of times
people are going on trips. They don't want downtime.
Yeah, and exactly, right. It's typically when
going over to Europe with
Typically, when your social calendar picks up, whether you have kids in school who are now on summer vacation, or even if you're a retired couple going on your kind of Europe excursions, it's something that is really the only option for a lot of our
excursions. But I'm not retired. Sorry, Ash.
Yeah, I'm due for.
I'll be on an excursion, but I'm not retired.
Yes, we're excited for it, but yeah, so. Book your SOFWAVE treatments, obviously, at Skin Deep for this summer. Take advantage of savings with them because, they are really the best in the business when it comes to to delivering not just incredible value for you guys, but incredible outcomes. So, definitely do not miss out on the wave this summer.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And don't forget, love your skin.